on an FBI sting operation just before the 2020 election.
13 on your side's Justin Bachman joins us now live outside federal court. And Justin, what does this mean for the two defendants who the jury could not reach the verdict for?
Hey, good evening, Juliet. We're not 100% sure what it could mean for the two of them. We're still going to have to wait and see. It has been a long trial. 31 days ago, this jury came together and was selected, and now a month later, we finally know the fates of the four men, or at least some of them. Well, what we do know is the jury was not able to fully reach a consensus for Barry Croft Jr. or Adam Fox. For the time being, their case is still a mistrial, and they're still behind bars as the government moves towards a retrial. As for Brandon Caserta and Daniel Harris, both men have been found not guilty on all charges. When that last verdict of not guilty was read out, audible gasps and tears filled the room from both Harris and his family. Now, we're not 100% sure what the government's next steps will be, but they did send out a statement thanking the jury and saying that those two defendants are indeed awaiting a retrial.
Obviously, we're disappointed with the outcome. Thought we had get the jury to convict beyond reasonable doubt based on the evidence we put forward. But we still believe in the jury system.
The trial here has demonstrated that there's some serious shortcomings in the case. Obviously, with acquittals occurring with Mr. Caserta and Mr. Harris, says a lot about what's going on in the case and the proofs. And we're ready to go. And unfortunately, I didn't throw any of my papers out, so we'll be ready for another trial.
Is Brandon Caserta's birthday, one of those two men that was found not guilty. When his attorney came out, he said the first thing he did when he left the courthouse was take a walk on his own down a sidewalk now that he's finally free of those handcuffs. Kirk, Juliet.
Justin, thank you.
Governor Whitmer's office issued a statement shortly after today's verdict was announced.
The lieutenant governor also had reaction to the decision. 13 on your side reporter Keely Lovern is in the newsroom. And Keely, what is the governor's office saying?
Well, Joanne Hools, who's the chief of staff to Governor Whitmer, released a statement within a half hour of that outcome, saying that both Americans and Michiganders, especially children, are living through a time where political violence has become normalcy. She said in part, quote, "There must be accountability and consequences for those who commit heinous crimes. Without accountability, extremists will be emboldened." Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist called today's outcome disappointing, saying in quote part, "While violent extremists try to scare us and prevent us from doing our jobs, we'll keep to that commitment. We are working and will work hard to live up to the oath that we took." Governor Whitmer's office also added that she will continue to work on behalf of Michiganders, and she and her team appreciate the prosecutors and law enforcement officers for their work on this entire case.
All right, Keely, thank you.
One of the jury's tasks was to decide on whether the FBI induced the men to commit crimes they wouldn't have otherwise thought about on their own. That's known as entrapment.
Yeah, but those cases are very difficult to prove and are rarely successful. Joining us now to break down today's partial verdict is former public defender and attorney with Levine & Levine, Kirsten Holtz. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, entrapment, it's a defense that's rarely used because it's rarely successful, right?
That's correct. It's a fairly new legal concept, becoming more well-known in the 1980s.
Okay.
And it is difficult for defendants to prevail on an entrapment defense. However, in this case, Judge Yonker ultimately decided to instruct the jury on entrapment, which made it more difficult for the government to achieve a guilty verdict.
So what goes on in jury deliberation rooms behind the scenes?
We only really know about it when we are allowed to speak with jurors after a trial. In this case, jurors were not allowed to be questioned by any of the attorneys. That's the most helpful way to find out what a juror is thinking about a case or how they felt about a certain witness. But the length of these deliberations tell us that these jurors spent a really long time analyzing the evidence, and the length of deliberations was the best tool to tell us that it might be a not guilty.
And to follow on that, also the questions that they came back and asked the judge too.
Right.
Yes, those. You'll often have attorneys trying to analyze whether it's going to be a not guilty verdict or a guilty verdict based on those questions. They asked for trial transcripts. They're not entitled to trial transcripts. Right. And I think the judge handled all of those questions very, very well. But those are usually, attorneys try and read into those.
Right.
Well, so we all know this was a high-profile case. Any idea why the jury wasn't sequestered?
It's fairly uncommon for juries to be sequestered. It's very hard on jurors to be away from their family and loved ones. And really, judges only try to sequester juries if the press and media attention is so intense that it would alter their opinions, or if it would put them at danger. It's very, very rare.
Okay, real quick, one more question. What about the 2 men that they could not reach a verdict on? What's going to happen now?
It's hard to say. They could face additional charges on the state level. They could face additional charges federally, but of different charges. We'll have to wait and see.
All right.
Kirsten Holtz, thank you so much.
Thank
for
you
being
so
with
much.
us.
And stay with 13 on your side for continuing coverage of today's verdict. Join us for more analysis and reaction at 5:30 and again at 6.
Other news now. Investigators are still gathering information after a high-speed chase through Muskegon County last night. 2 Michigan State police cars were damaged. It began just before 8:30 last night with a traffic stop.
Yeah, the driver was pulled over near Jefferson and Summit in Muskegon Heights. The chase started when the driver put the car in reverse, hitting the police cruiser before again taking off. It ended on Pontaluna Road with a trooper hitting a stopped car near Grand Haven Road. The suspect eventually crashed while trying to get onto southbound US 31.
We first showed you the wreckage last night at 11 o'clock. Today, 13 on your side's Charlie Tinker talked to an eyewitness and got the 911 recordings.
Oh my God, I'm getting out of my car. I don't know what to do. They're running around me with guns.
A frantic roadside 911 call from a terrified driver caught in the middle of Thursday's chaotic high-speed chase.
I feel like I would be going into the line of fire if I keep going, but I feel like I'm in the line of fire here.
A bunch of cop cars come flying through to go up over the bridge.
Lisa Lang says she had just finished a door-dashing shift and was on the way to her husband's office driving across the overpass at Pontaluna.
I went up over the bridge. They were surrounding a white car with guns drawn. There was another car sitting there.
Our cameras caught a repair crew working this morning on the twisted guardrail where police say the suspects crashed